This video is not intended to encourage or glorify any kind of drug use. The sole purpose of these videos is to educate you on the dangers of what these substances can do to you. Please do not do any of the acts mentioned in this video. I repeat, do not do any of the acts mentioned in this video.
Welcome to the world of Tales from the Trip.
Okay, so instead of the fake trip report or the hey gotcha type video at the end, I thought it would be interesting to do something for real today, instead of something purposefully not for April Fool's Day. Every year I try to do something different and I figured, why not do this? I actually had a dream I made this video a few months back, and the fact that it's becoming reality makes it very fooly for the month of April. Anyway, enjoy the absolute horror of melatonin, but don't take it too seriously, but also do take it seriously, for real. To preface this experience with a background, I am a former Marine infantryman, and I saw very heavy combat in Afghanistan and Iraq. I have never used illegal drugs or even tried to use legal ones to get high. I'm a very stoic, dependable guy, and I've been relied on by other friends to trip sit for everything from shrooms to DMT, but haven't ever personally used anything stronger than booze or cigarettes in my life. I've never even smoked weed, never even once. I struggled with alcohol a bit after coming back into civilian life and quit the stuff completely when I was diagnosed with PTSD and depression. Depression went right away as soon as I stopped drinking, and after a few years, the PTSD stuff went away for the most part. Having come through 6 years of war more or less unscathed, I had still developed horrible insomnia. I really wasn't having flashbacks or bad dreams or anything like that. I just would hit 3 or 4 day periods where I could only sleep a few hours a night and would be totally restless throughout. Well, one day, my brother told me melatonin was a really great sleep aid. I told him I didn't want sleeping pills because I don't like waking up feeling dopey and drugged, and that I already have some mental predilections towards substance-induced depression. He assured me that this stuff was totally not a sleeping pill, and that it would simply make my sleep feel more restful without any of the dopey side effect. He gave me a bottle of 50 milligram capsules, and I decided to try them the next time I had an insomnia attack. So fast forward a few weeks, haven't slept in 2 days, and I'm staring at my bleary-eyed, miserable visage in the mirror when I remember the melatonin sitting inside the drawer next to me. I took 2 of the 50 milligram capsules and swallowed them, then lay back on my bed. I was out like a light in about 10 minutes and blasted into what may be the most disturbing night's sleep of my life. To say I had a bad dream is an understatement. I had the first and most horrid trip of my life, and having no prior experience with such phenomenon, was totally lost and panicked throughout. When I fell asleep, I was immediately back in Sangin, Afghanistan, in the loudest, most crazy firefight I have ever seen. Waves of rotting corpses that were also on fire were fairly clawing and shrieking at me as I unloaded a machine gun into them. The bodies would burst open and maggots would pour out. Mortars and rockets shrieked in and detonated with the most terrifying reality I've ever experienced in a dream, spraying maggots and still somehow screaming rotten meat everywhere. I was desperately looking around and screaming for the rest of my squad, but I was all alone and trapped in a feeling of total and utter isolation. Despite the total reality of the dream, I was utterly unable to understand that it was not real. It was 100% lifelike, and as far as my brain was concerned, it was really happening. I tried to run and hide from the waves of screaming, burning corpses crawling at me into a house. It was totally dark inside, and I didn't want to go in, but there was nowhere to go. I entered the house and it was totally dark, not just regular darkness, but an utterly black and bottomless abyssal void. Nothing but my racing heart and heavy breath made any sound as I crept through the impenetrable darkness. Then I began to hear somebody whispering in Pashto and began to panic. It seemed to be all around me, and no matter how I tried to blindly run or crawl, it was always getting closer. I could smell burning flesh, and the voices whispering in Pashto were talking about capturing me and cutting my head off on the news so my family could watch me die like an infidel pig. I speak fluent Pashto, and the reality of the dream was so great that the voices hunting me did too. A wet hand with flesh hanging off in ribbons plunged out of the dark and clamped around my ankle. I tried to fire my weapon, but it just fell apart in my hands. Then I began to scream as it dragged me at great speed with tremendous strength into the void. My wife woke me up, and I reflexively punched her in the face, knocking her off the bed. She told me that I had started shrieking bloody murder out of nowhere and thrashing around like I was having a seizure. I was bathed in sweat, and my throat was hoarse for 3 days from the screaming I had been doing. I was able to settle down and give my wife's sore jaw some ice and ibuprofen before collapsing back into a restless sleep full of formless nightmares where reality was shattering and collapsing in crystalline crashing waves of vibrating lines. I have no personal psychedelic experiences to compare that night's dreams to, but frankly, I think that what I had was more of a psychedelic experience than anything else. For the rest of the next day, life felt really weird and surreal, like I might still be dreaming and not know it, or that reality was slightly and subtly disjointed. My wife wrote off my panic right hook to her face as a night terror because she's an awesome lady, and I did some bleary-eyed research the next day on my laptop while she made jokes about quitting her job to become an MMA fighter. I discovered that I had taken a massive dose of melatonin, 10 to 100 times what people normally take for regular sleep supplementation. My working theory is that between the abnormally high doses I took, my PTSD, and the 3 blast-related brain injuries I have sustained triggered something far more crazy inside my poor abused noggin. I'm one of the very few people that will experience this with melatonin. Let me preface this by saying that I took a pretty high dosage of melatonin for the first time in a couple of months. The first thing I remember is being in an operating room and a surgeon pulling and rearranging these fiber-like wires coming out of my brain. It was insanely intricate, and he was explaining the process of how each movement would better fix my problems with my brain function. After the operation, for some reason, I needed to be reborn. This is where shit gets weird, and I was literally put back inside my mother and birthed again. I think the reasoning behind this was to reset my body. Well, anyway, afterwards, I feel really good, and I'm having nice heart-to-heart moments with all of my family members. And soon after it's bedtime, I wake up in the middle of the night on the couch, thinking I'm alone, and start playing Rocket League for some reason. And I notice that my aunt is in the room, and she is still sleeping. So I turn the console and TV off and head to bed. I'm sleeping well, but then I start to have these tiny random hallucinations and like a migraine sort of feeling. I think I'm awake, but I soon realize that I'm just dreaming, so I calm down and just let the nightmares/hallucinations keep going, hoping they'll stop soon, but they keep getting worse. Then I see this huge, grotesque, fat, sweaty man hidden in the darkness with a kitchen knife walk slowly into my room, and as he becomes clearer and clearer to see until he starts stabbing me repeatedly. I know it's not real, but I start to call for help as the head pains get worse. I soon realize that in real life, I'm being rushed around by my family members, and I am convulsing. I'm sort of whispering different phrases like help me, thank you, and I'm thinking I don't deserve this kindness. Why would they help me? When suddenly I have this realization that I am possessed, and now I'm starting to violently fly around the air while I'm convulsing. This is all happening while my consciousness is split between the dream and reality. This all reaches a sort of head after a minute when it became too much for me and I wake up in real life. After waking up, I had the realization that my dream subconsciously interpreted myself as a devil-like figure, and that fat man as a god figure trying to purge me, or the devil, from the world. This is probably the scariest dream I've ever had. It felt so real and vivid. I don't usually have nightmares, and when I do, I'm really good at just realizing that I am in a dream and that it's all okay. So it's kinda crazy how I was able to incept myself inside of a dream and scare the living shit out of myself like this. I don't think I'll be taking melatonin again for a while. Just reliving this is scaring me. One last thing, if any of you have taken antidepressants, you might know what serotonin/brain zaps are. Well, this is the best way to describe what the head pains felt like in the dream. I'm also an atheist, by the way. I had taken 1 milligram of Xanax about 5 hours prior to sleeping. My normal routine at the time was to take a melatonin pill before sleep, as it really helps me fall asleep. Before I took the melatonin, I pondered if I actually needed it, considering Xanax can knock you out as well. However, since it had been at least 5 hours since I took the Xanax, and I had not felt its effects any longer, or so I thought, I decided to take the melatonin. I fell asleep, probably immediately. Whoever remembers falling asleep? What I remember during my sleep was being in my room, stumbling around, trying to stand up, and being completely unable to do so. I began flailing my arms around, smashing into furniture with my body, trying to prop myself up, only to have the furniture be moved with such force that it ended up upside down, on top of each other, completely strewn about the room like a bunch of dirty clothes. I soon realized I was dreaming and tried to wake myself up. I opened my eyes to see my room, but became confused, not being able to figure out if I was seeing my room within my dream or in reality. I then fell in and out of this dream until I woke up the next morning completely confused. My furniture was in its normal position, and I then realized what was occurring during the night. Later during the day at work, I looked up drug interactions online, and every place I checked said that Xanax and melatonin interacted with each other, causing moderate to severe motor skill malfunctions and can also cause coma. This kinda blew my mind because obviously this was exactly what was occurring, but within my dream. Not only that, but the fact I kept falling in and out of the dream without being able to control myself creeped me out immensely. Fortunately, melatonin isn't a drug people take for a good time. I hope someone finds this story helpful, if not, interesting.